and welcome to Truth in Movies. I'm JayDreamerZ, and this is a segment where we break down the truth in the movies as I see it. I like to watch the movies and get something out of it, instead of just watching it to be mindlessly entertained, even though I do that sometimes. What's up, everyone? I see the Good Vibe Tribe showed up. How's it going, everyone? We got Tawab in the chat, Phil12K, KT Baby, Hyperborea, a bunch of people in the chat. It's good to see you all. Now, if you're anything like me, you've been waiting for this movie to come out. And give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me. That's all. Thank you. This movie looks amazing. I love disaster movies. I specifically love end of the world movies. I love reset movies, apocalypse movies. This looks like it could be one of the most ultimate apocalyptic movies ever. It's about the moon and the moon crashing down into Earth, the moon splitting and breaking apart, which is interesting to me because studying eschatology and the end of things and renewals, the moon splitting has come across my research. I've come across that many times in my research. Good to see you guys. Thank you. Thanks, Candy, for letting me know. I appreciate it. KT Baby, Shannon, everyone's giving me the thumbs ups. All right, cool. So yeah, I've been waiting for this movie to come out for quite some time. It's not really out yet. You can buy it, which I had to do. So I bought it for 20 bucks, spent the night checking it out, and we're going to go over it together. I'm going to show you all the breadcrumbs that I've found in this movie. First, I would like to get the chat put on the screen here. There we go. Thanks for all your good vibes and well wishes too for my son's birthday and everything. Really, I told him everyone said happy birthday, so he said thank you. All right, cool. Sounds good. Looks good. This is Moonfall. We're going to talk about the movie right now. Let's go ahead and get into it. The moon is supposed to be leaving orbit and crashing into the Earth. Let's find out what happens. Let's check out the symbolism. Some people can probably already see some of the symbolism in just the movie posters. Oh, man, I love looking at the symbolism in movie posters. I actually made this image myself. It's a couple of different images composited. But I love checking out the symbolism that they put into movie posters, album covers, anything like that. People's thumbnails on YouTube. It's really interesting to me. Oh, Hydro, thank you. Super thank you. Appreciate you. All right, well, let's jump into things. You guys want to check out the movie? Have some popcorn? Share some drinks and some good times. So the movie starts off showing you space. Now, please keep in mind, right? We all have different cosmologies. We have different ideas about the world that we live in and the heavens and the underworld and stuff. So take it with a grain of salt. However they present these things to you, this is just their version of it, essentially, okay? So we look at space, we see some sort of star system, and the first thing they say, one of the first things is guidance is internal. So I feel like this movie, along with many other movies, speaks directly to the viewer. It says guidance is internal. Watching the movie, trying to figure out, some stuff about the apocalypse, to get some guidance, really. I feel like that's one of the reasons why we all watch movies, is whether we know it or not, we need some guidance. We need to be reminded of some things, and the movies are great at reminding us of those. All right, so we've got NASA, liftoff, they show rockets, and we flash back to Apollo 11, 1969, or however long ago it was. KT Baby, thank you. Super see you in the chat. Appreciate it. So Apollo 11. Now, I am going to throw out a whole bunch of stuff about NASA and SpaceX and the moon and all these different weird conspiracies. Why? Because the movie does. Not because it's just my personal inclination or thoughts. The movie is portraying this as all being a setup and all being for other reasons, and that these government agencies, by the way, is what NASA is. It's a government agency. We'll talk about that later too. But anyways, so they show the old Apollo 11, right? The number 11 is directly related to the word Elven as well, in case you didn't know. Now, one of the people that produced this movie and made this movie is called Centropolis, which, the Opolis, if you ever hear of like Opolis, like Superman lives in Metropolis or whatever, the polis part means city, essentially. It means a gathering of people. It implies a city. Centropolis means the center city, the city in the center, in the middle. And as you can see here, this particular city kind of reminds me personally of the Disney logo, except for it doesn't have a little dome above it, right? But it looks like the buildings are made to look like a castle or a mountain or a volcano with the lights shooting out of the top. And then, of course, you've got 4 bridges to it because it's surrounded by water, right? It's dividing that area by 4, which represents the North Pole and the ancient land that used to be at the North Pole. This is the side, allegedly the side of the Earth. Of which side, I don't know. I don't know if it has sides or whatever. But this is the side, and they show you the atmosphere. But what they're really doing is they're putting it subconsciously into your mind. This is the blue beam. This is symbolically the blue beam that shoots up out of the world to save the world from annihilation, from the apocalypse itself, which we've talked about many times, so we won't get into it too much. All right, so then they start to turn it, right? They started off this way, vertical, because that's the way it should be, and that's the way that your mind makes sense of it. But then they start to flip the image. You can see the moon starting to come out. And there's these astronauts out there in space. Jedi, hey, thank you. Super appreciate you. May the Force be with you. So they're playing this song, and it's Africa. I don't know the words to it or whatever. Hurry, boy, it's waiting there for you. Doom, doom, doom. One of my favorite songs. Anyways, so these astronauts are out in space. This is January 12th, 2011. 1 year before the whole 2012 end of the world Mayan calendar controversy. Airplane mode Robin. Hey, thank you. I will use that for my son. I appreciate it. All right. So they're doing some sort of satellite repairs out there in space. Now I'm going to talk about space and my concept of space and what we're actually looking at here. As we go. So you see the astronauts out there, they're floating about, doing their little spritzes of air or whatever, that are swimming around in the vacuum. And they're fixing stuff way out there. Now, in my mind, in my cosmology, how I perceive the world, they're not in space. They're still way up high in the sky. That blackness and that darkness, when I see that, instead of looking into it like it's one of those 3D pictures that you have to stare at for a long time so that you can imagine that there's worlds and all that stuff, I've stopped doing that because I believe that the firmament or the sky is much bigger than we give it credit for, and that darkness is just the sky, and we live in a dark city. All right, so here's them out there, way up high in the sky, right, where the energies are neutral, so things can float or whatever. Possibly. This is just my interpretation of it. Anyways, so we got the spaceship, and all of a sudden we have problems. The electricity's starting to crackle. The lights are starting to flicker. Not good when that happens in a movie, ever. That's never a good sign. That's never like the lights crackle and the electricity crackles, and then all of a sudden, like, the person wins the lottery or something good happens, right? No. The electricity crackles to let you know that it's a breadcrumb letting you know that there's something happening electromagnetically that ties into whatever the antagonist of this movie is, okay? The bad guys of the movie. So they're out there way above our world. There's a problem with the electricity. Something's starting to happen. You can see that it's all starting to kind of flash back and forth like that. And the lights are starting to turn off and stuff, right? And we'll find out what happened here in a minute. Holy moly. Oh my God. I'm getting some super chats. Thank you. I appreciate you all. Matt Kubus, thank you. Serving Angel, thank you. I appreciate all of you. All right, back to the movie. So the electricity starts to crackle and buzz, right? This is the main character. He's the main astronaut in the movie. He looks out into space and he sees this black cloud, what they end up calling a swarm, coming right at them, right? So this black, it looks like this black goo almost. Like, well, we'll end up finding out that it's nanotechnology from aliens. But this black goo sort of technology substance can move about, it can shapeshift and stuff, and it goes right through their spacecraft or whatever, blows the aliens away. He's floating away. And then we've got, okay, I wanted to show you this specifically because this is one of the things that bothers me about the current way that they portray space. If they were in a complete vacuum, an infinite, allegedly, vacuum, that's just, I mean, there's no atmosphere whatsoever. There's nothing there. Everything is just like negative force, basically. They see this little spritz coming off the back of the aircraft there. Do you see that right there? Little spritz of air. So what happens is this black goo flips around their aircraft, which is what it is, and it starts spinning. So in order to like slow himself down and to make it not spin, they go pss, 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 and they shoot out this air, right? Which blows my mind that they show that and that they even say that they do that, because that's air that they need to breathe. Like, I wonder how much they have. Like, how much oxygen did the astronauts take up there so that they can like move instead of breathe? You know what I mean? That sounds like it would be a lot, but that's just me. Anyway, so they're spritzing the air. The aircraft's starting to turn. What is the air pushing off of in order to make it turn? Something, which tells me they're not in a vacuum. Anyways, that's just me. I don't want to harp on that too much. And then they show you the moon. Boom, there it is. They show you that black goo going down and hitting the moon, right? Now, I'm going to come at this from my viewpoint, which right now is more of plasma apocalypse glasses, right? So that I can see things through that lens and understand it a little bit better. This moon, the moon as I see it, is the sky of the world across from us. Okay, if we were to open up our sky and reveal the glory of the heavens, we would see a sister world right across from us. And the reason why we only see one side of the moon is because that is a dome. That's the sky. That's their firmament. That's the top. That's the roof of their world. And it's white because it very well might be made of ice. It might be naturally made. All right. Anyway, so this alien substance starts drilling into the moon, and that's how we start this movie off. Great. I love it when they jump right into the action and get right to it. So MOONFALL. The moon is going to fall to the earth. All right. Now, basically, this guy right here, the astronaut, gets blamed for the death of his compatriots because some of them end up dying because of this accident in space. He has to go before this tribunal of these government peers that he has, and they all cover it up. They know what happened. They have footage of what happened, and they cover it up, and they publicly shame this guy, telling him that's not true. Couldn't just a solar flare cause this, right? Couldn't it be this? Couldn't it be that? Well, it's funny that the government likes to weigh out its options and alternatives when it suits them, but when it doesn't, they're like, no, this is the answer. This is the way that it is. So that stuff drilled into this crater in a place on the moon called Mare Crisium. Mare Crisium. Mare, I don't know if you know this, but like I said, I believe that the moon is just the sky, the dome, or the firmament of the world across from us. And I believe, based on my research so far, that it's made out of frozen water. Interestingly enough, all of those little craters and stuff like that you see on the moon, those little dark patches and stuff, those are known as oceans. Like they're literally called frozen oceans up there. They're all named after seas and oceans and lakes and stuff like that. Interesting. All right, so this guy's on the news. This is like a year later in 2012. And they say that it was a very public fall from grace. There's a lot of angel symbolism, specifically fallen angel symbolism in this movie as well. So you can see him there wearing the orange jumpsuit. And then they focus on this. One of the characters, I think it was his wife or someone, picks up this snow globe. And I've talked about the snow globe symbolism in the movies many times. They show the snow globe all of the time throughout television shows and movies and stuff, and they make a point to zoom in on it. When they zoom in on something that seems insignificant, it's not. They want you to check it out. They want you to process it. This is how we read. Watching movies is how we read things. This is how messages are communicated to us. This isn't just, some random picture of a snow globe and it's meaningless and it doesn't really mean anything, or it's there to show you that like, there was some fond memory that had something to do with this snow globe. But we're going to put that in every movie, and we're going to put that in every TV show. We're going to have some sort of snow globe, and usually that snow globe will break, right? If there's an apocalyptic event happening. But anyways, they show you the snow globe because that is a symbol of the world that we live in. It's got this glass top, this glass covering. It's got weather and pressure inside that creates snow and precipitation and things like that, weather systems. And then it's got this sort of foundation right? This plane of existence on the bottom. So they zoom in on the snow globe, they make it a point. Now there's this conspiracy theorist guy in the movie, right? He's into aliens, he's into UFOs, he's all about alternative theories and megastructure theories and stuff. And this guy is sneaking into, he actually works at this fast food place, but he's sneaking into like this major school in order to hack into this professor's computer and get the orbital data or data from the moon. Basically, he's checking on the computer in this college to see if the moon's orbit is changing or not, because he's super into that. So he's really nervous. He busts out his pills. Nobody ever explains what these pills are really all for. There's all kinds of pills in there. And then he goes, oh crap, was it the red or the blue? That's red and blue symbolism. And he's super nervous right now, right? So he takes one of his pills, he's on the phone, and he's like, oh, please tell me it was blue, right? That's symbolic. Like, please tell me I'm not about to just become a rebel and get in a lot of trouble, because red is rebellious. Red is going against this current system of the blue sky that we live in today. So they show you the computer that he's logging into. He's talking to some guy who has access to the satellite, and he's like, oh yeah, professor, I see you're logging in there. And they show you all the information on the computer. He says, yeah, I'm still tracking the moon's orbit. Meanwhile, or later on, he jumps in his car. He rushes back to his real job. He's not actually a professor, right? Believe it or not, in the world we live in today, some people out there, will just label themselves professor or doctor or whatever it may be. And interestingly enough, that affects the populace. That affects the whole rest of the world and how they portray this person, just because they have given themselves some sort of a title or whatever. So this is the back of his car there. You can see he's got all this alien bumper stickers and stuff like that, so that you can see the movie's trying to say, oh, look at him. He's basically seen as being a nutcase, which is weird because this is the guy who ends up saving the world. All right, so he puts on his little apron, he goes back to his fast food place, and he's late. He's late for a very important date. Just like the White Rabbit, right? And he happens to be wearing white. And he works at a place called Angels. Interesting. There's another angel reference. In the middle of taking an order at the drive-thru, he gets a text message that shows that the moon's orbit is decreasing, that the moon is getting closer to the Earth. So he freaks out. He runs out, gets on the phone, and he calls NASA, right? He just straight up just calls NASA, and he's like, I've uncovered what might be the most important discovery in human history. I need you to patch me through to the director of NASA immediately, right? Says some guy who works at a hamburger stand, right? Which, that's how the world would see that. That's not how I see it. I think that everyone is credible. Everyone has a certain element of credibility. Everyone is convinced in their own minds of their own truths and stuff. So I'm not a big fan of labels and stuff like that. So the lady who answers the phone is like, honey, I sell t-shirts and toys, right? Let me patch you through to like the operator or something. Isn't that interesting that they put that in there? They didn't have to have him reach like the toy department for NASA. Why would they put that in the movie? Well, I can tell you, since they did, I'm going to comment on it. It frustrates the ever-living crap out of me that when I go to the store, I see so much government toys and t-shirts and clothing and crap. Like, have people forgotten this is a government agency, right? I mean, maybe it's just me, but if I am not, I have to be careful how I say this, but I am not for that. I will tell you that in any way, shape, or form. I'm not one of those people that says, yeah, taxes are bad and the government's always messed up and this and that. Oh, look at this NASA shirt. Can I get one of those? No, I don't support that. I don't do that. None of the above. And it blows my mind that I see so many people walking around supporting NASA with all of their NASA t-shirts and toys and things like that. It just honestly blows my mind. Like it's government propaganda at its finest, in my personal opinion. Now, that being said, it exists. So I accept. That's what exists in this realm, in the world that we live in today. Whoa, Jedi. Thank you. Hey, I got another super chat from Jedi. Thank you. Super appreciate it. High five. All right, let's continue on with the movie. So they go on to say, now you're in the NASA headquarters, one of them in Texas, and one of the main NASA ladies walks in and they're like, oh my God, the moon's orbit has shifted. And then this guy over here, he's on the stats, right? He's fully investigating, and he says its orbital radius is decreasing. So let me explain what that means. Orbital radius is how big of a circle it's going, right? Now, there's different cosmologies. Remember, on one cosmology where the Earth is a spinning, floating, wobbling, tilting, flying ball through an infinite vacuum circling a fireball or whatever, in that particular cosmology, it is the Earth, or it's the moon going all the way around the world, okay? In another one, in ancient cosmologies, it was the moon making a circle above the world, just like this. Now, let's take the ancient cosmology real quick and apply what's happening in the movie. That means that the circle that moon is making is getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's going past the boundaries that that we've gotten used to. All right, anyways, so then this is the lady who's in charge, and she's listening to the people basically say, hey, the moon is falling to the earth, and she goes, no, well, that's not possible. This is mainstream academics and their answer to any sort of alternative theory that people offer, even whenever it is detrimental to all existence in the world. They just respond by saying, that's not possible. Really? I think everything is possible. I think many things are not probable, but like in Alice in Wonderland, one of the characters says that I like to do 6 impossible things before breakfast. You know, I don't believe in impossible, but this is NASA, and they say, oh, that's not possible, right? So her little squad says, well, hey, thank you, Ken. Thank you. I super appreciate you, Ken. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. And shout out to your family too. Good to see you guys. So her squad says, well, we ran the numbers and we did triple check our data, right? So now these people are saying, I hear you that you're saying it's impossible, but we have researched and we have come up with the same result many times over, right? So her response, instead of being scientifically minded, she goes, so the moon's been orbiting around the earth for billions of years, and now you're telling me it's changed its course. Do you hear that? Do you hear the way that people like that talk? This, I mean, it's not Halle Berry or whatever. I don't know her. But this is how real people talk in order to justify their beliefs, in order to not engage in advanced theory or speculative conversation or philosophy or anything. They just become condescending. That's all, right? I mean, and not only that, but it's the way that they talk. It's the way that they set these things up. For example, she says, so the moon's been orbiting around the earth for billions of years. Time out. That's her just throwing that out there, stating a fact, and then asking a question about the fact that she just stated, right? I don't like when people talk like that. It just, to me, it's intellectual bullying. It's not intellectual at all. It's not open-minded. It's just being a bully. Zoe. Oh, that's a cool picture. I like your picture. Is that blue hair? That's cool. Thanks, Zoe. Super appreciate you. All right, let's continue on. So here's the moon. Here's all of its wonderful little oceans and stuff that it's named after. And they can see that there's some sort of gas or something coming up out of that crater, right? Now we go back to the conspiracy theorist's house to let you know he is a conspiracy theorist, right? They've plastered all this stuff up on the wall. They've got the space, stuff up there. They've got rockets and SpaceX and stuff. So you can tell he's a nerd, okay, which is cool. I'm a nerd. I like that. I've got my bedroom's all messy with all kinds of weird little souvenirs of my beliefs and research and stuff, and I love it. I feel like it adds character. So if this guy happens to have a NASA poster or whatever, does that mean that he's a shill? No, it doesn't, man. I used to love NASA too. We all have a walk in life, okay? Just because somebody doesn't believe in, or just because someone doesn't stand exactly where you stand on your path, doesn't mean that person's wrong or lost or, will never believe in what you believe in. It definitely doesn't mean that they're the enemy, okay? I think it's good for us to be more understanding when it comes to other people and their path and their walks in life. So I like to find what resonates with me between me and this guy instead of finding the differences. Like, for example, he's got a SpaceX poster, right? that doesn't mean that I'm going to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, he likes SpaceX. Oh, that guy's trash. Or, you know what I mean? No, I don't do that. Excuse me. All right. So then they take you to this observatory. That's the building with all the little domes on it. And he's walking in because he wants to meet up with this astronaut. He just found out that the moon's orbit is decreasing, that the moon is falling to the earth, and he wants to find an astronaut to tell him about it, right? Well, he accidentally walks in on this classroom that took a trip to the observatory, and they're waiting for this astronaut, the one that allegedly accidentally killed all of his crewmates. They're waiting for him to show up to like sort of give a space talk or whatever, right? And tell them about space. So the kids are like, you don't look like an astronaut. And this guy obviously is not an astronaut. And he's like, to put it bluntly, the moon is a megastructure. Because the kids are like, are you going to teach us about the moon or whatever? Because they think he's the astronaut. He's like, okay, yeah. You want to know about the moon? Oh, buddy, you asked the wrong dude. Like, but since you're here, let me enlighten you, right? He doesn't sugarcoat it. He doesn't talk about like, oh yeah, when you look up at the sky and you see all those stars and you know what I mean? The typical regurgitated nonsense. This guy gets right to the point. He's like, you want to know about the moon? You guys want to tell me I don't look like an astronaut and that I look like crap and stuff? Cool. Let me feed you some dessert. Let me give you like some information. The moon is a megastructure. Boom. Do you get it? It's huge and it's artificial. Whoever built this incredible thing must think that we are a pathetic species. But don't even get me started on eclipses. They're only possible because the moon is exactly 400 times smaller in the sky than the sun, and exactly 400 times closer to the Earth. When Apollo 12 dropped their empty fuel tank, it impacted the moon and it rang like a bell. It rang for hours. And do you know why? Because the damn moon is hollow. Now, I love this. I love this so much because a child is... These kids in the movies, okay, whatever. I'm just going to talk about the movie, okay? But in the movie, these children will never forget this. They will forget 98% of every day they ever went to school and most of anything that they were ever taught as being factual or whatever. All these kids will never forget this day. I love that. Because the guy just comes right out of left field with some hard truths. Or at least what he thinks is a wrench in their system. So then the main astronaut comes in. He's like, hey, what's up? What's going on here? I'm supposed to be speaking here? And the guy's like, oh, God, I need to talk to you, bro. That's why I came here. Listen, you need to go back and tell NASA that the moon is out of orbit. And then this guy's like, oh, yeah, really? Oh, interesting. Hey, guys, can you come escort this guy off the property? Some crazy guy thinking that the moon's out of orbit or something, right? This is his reaction, too. Now, I got to jump in and say this, right? I can understand a little part of this, right? Not everyone, okay, for example, this astronaut is famous, okay? People know who he is and what he does and stuff. And this conspiracy theory guy knows about the astronaut, knows of him at the very least. But the astronaut's never met this guy before. He doesn't know who he is. The problem here is that the conspiracy weirdo, just like he did with the children, just coming right out of left field and saying, hey, I believe this, so now you're obligated to listen to me, basically. That's not always going to be tasty as a meal to other people or as a snack, okay? This guy over here is like, I don't even know who you are. You're telling me the moon's out of orbit. This is a really weird conversation. So I can understand that side of it, right? Maybe it would have been more tactful, even though, you know, it's pretty much the most serious subject that can be talked about is the world ending. So I get it. I get how this other guy is like really wanting to move things along. So I get both sides. Now they show you the snow globe again. They focus on it and zoom into it as a different character's holding onto it. Again, snow globe symbolism of the world that we live in. All right, so the conspiracy guy goes to his mom. She lives in an elderly old folks home, and we're given the impression, she's like, "Oh, hello, are you new here?" This is her son, right? He says, "No, Mom, I'm not new here." The reason that I believe, symbolically in the movies, especially in apocalyptic movies, you're going to have there's usually some sort of a token character that lost their memory, or a token character who is deaf and can't hear, or a blind character, right? There's usually one of those in there, and it's symbolic of those things that happen to people during the apocalypse. Some people go blind and they look up at the deadlights in the sky and they can't see or whatever, and the plasma hits them in the eyes. The world depressurizes and the eardrums rupture and break, and people get bloody noses and bleed from their eyes and nose and stuff. And another one is losing memory. So they put this elderly woman who has Alzheimer's in the movie to represent that. All right, we go back to NASA. As you can see in the background, they're showing a little diagram that the moon's orbit is like getting closer and closer. And they say the moon has entered an elliptical orbit. That just means it's not a perfect circle, it's an oval. And then they show you the moon, and they say that once the moon gets past a certain point, city-sized pieces of moon debris will rain down on us. Interesting. This is in almost every prophecy I've ever heard about. Not pieces of the moon breaking off and falling to the earth, although, right, I believe that has truth to it too. But huge rocks that look like they're the size of mountains, miles long and stuff, falling down or floating down from the sky above. I've seen that in many prophecies. And as you can see, you see the moon sort of curving in at this trajectory. Now, if we look at it from an ancient cosmology perspective, instead of putting a 3D globular world there in the middle, right, we would just make that entire circle our world, the top of our world, like a table. And then you would see the moon is circling tighter. That is one of the apocalypses that happens. And it's also the sun. When the moon leaves its appointed boundaries and it makes a tighter circle, the sun also follows suit, which shortens our days and our years and months and stuff. All right, so this guy says, not exactly. As the moon moves closer to us. So they're like, it's going to take the moon 3 revolutions or something. So the guy's like, 3 months. Okay. They're like, no, not 3 months. You see, as the moon tightens in its spiral like that, our months will begin to shorten. This is in the movie. This is exactly what Jesus was talking about when his disciples asked him, like, hey, tell us some of these signs. What should we look for so that we're prepared, so that we know that the end is near, we don't want to live in constant fear all the time that the world's going to end or whatever. And Jesus says the days will shorten. Look for that. Look for the days to shorten. This guy says we've estimated it's going to be roughly about 3 weeks. So this could be the movies telling us about how long these things actually occur. In the meantime, everyone keep your mouths shut. You hear that, NASA? All this truth that we just shared with everyone, all this realization about the world ending, don't tell anybody, right? Why? Why do these agencies want to keep this a secret? Well, I have a theory about that. And my theory is that if they were to tell everyone that the world is going to come to an end and that it does cyclically, then the masses would try to figure out how to stop it, right? They would probably try to change their ways rather quickly. But these people, I believe, this is my own theory, they want to leave. They're trapped inside of our atmosphere, inside of our world, which has pressure and a strong gravitational pull or whatever. And basically it shortens their lifespans, and they're no longer considered immortals. They become mortal by living here. So they want out. So he's like, don't tell anybody. And one of the guys picks up his phone and he's like, that might be a problem. It's kind of trending on Twitter right now. So you should probably talk to the people. So he goes out, talks to the news conference, and he's like, there's no need to panic. There's no need to panic. If they ever say there's no need to panic, I'm not saying you should panic, because that's one of the first rules of truth seeking, right? Whenever we're talking about space travel and leaving the world and the apocalypse and all this stuff, that comes from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic, right? But if they say there's no need to panic, that means that there is probably something actually going on that is panic worthy, right? So the girl's like, you just lied to the whole country. Yeah, welcome to the government, right? This is NASA. Oh, NASA would never lie to us. That's the government. It's not Hasbro. It's not a toy company. It's the government. All right, so then they show you this television, and on one side you see the guy in the red versus the girl in the blue box. And the guy in the red is saying, imagine that the tides of the ocean on the coast, growing hundreds of times larger, moving hundreds of miles inland. Moving to higher ground is the only possible chance of surviving this. Now, this is interesting because this is just background dialogue being said on the television, but it's important enough that it's written into the script, which means they're talking to you. They're talking to me, right? They're not talking to the people on the TV. They could have just had gibberish on there. So I want to talk about this. The tides growing, right? Well, there's a few things that tend to happen before the end times, before the apocalypse comes. One of the prophecies says that the tides themselves, that the ocean will be turbulent and that people will wonder at it saying like, what the hell's going on with the ocean, right? And then another thing is that if we have a zero gravity point, and I'm just going to use that word, so if you don't like the concept of gravity, that's fine. I don't like it either, but I don't really care to argue about the word, okay? But if there is a loss of gravity or whatever, which I believe that there will be, then the waters would just start to float up into the air, especially if the wind was starting to push them and that there was a world storm. The waters would rise up miles into the sky, and you would see that. Just like in that movie. What was that movie? Anyways, I forget. All right. So this guy's like, oh, honey, I just heard we got to get to higher ground. We should go to Aspen. I don't know where they are in the movie right now, but then the kids are like, we're going to Colorado. Now this is super interesting too. For me personally, because I live in Colorado and I have always felt drawn to this place. I felt like my life was set up so that I ended up here. And the moment I came here, I knew I kind of had to be here, and I'm going to stay here because I kind of feel personally that this is where I'm supposed to be when this stuff happens. That's just me. But the movies corroborate my own personal feelings. I don't know if this happens to you, but there's something about Colorado that pops up in books, in movies, in TV shows as being some sort of a safe place from the apocalypse. For example, in the Hunger Games, right? In the Hunger Games, there was these 12 different districts or whatever, or maybe 13, I can't remember. But the main one, the 12th or the 13th one, the ones that were all like the elites of the world who were in charge, they all lived in Colorado, in the mountains. Very interesting stuff. All right, so the TV goes on to say, Earth's stronger gravity will completely break the moon apart. Okay, right? Whatever you say, TV, that makes zero sense to me. Just because, like, if I had two magnets and put them near to one another, like, this one's just gonna, like, the big magnet's gonna cause the little magnet to break up into pieces. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't follow it. I don't care about it. I don't want to argue about it. The semantics of, well, here's what science says and here's what academics believes or whatever. It sounds ridiculous to me, as does most of the stories that I've heard. But that's just me. I like to look into alternative stories. So they show you a rocket and they say the entire world it's holding its collective breath. This is a little breadcrumb for you. The entire world will be holding its collective breath whenever the world depressurizes. It's literally going to take your breath away. It's going to try to suck. It's going to feel like somebody's trying to suck the air out of your own mouth for a short period of time, thankfully, according to my research. Anyways, so they show this rocket blasting off and taking to the skies. As you can see, when these rockets blast off and take to the skies, they don't go up. They go at an angle. They go over. They don't go up. They go over, right? And what comes up must go down. See how they show this angle? When they show these things going out into space, does that look like it's on a space trajectory? Or does that look like it's going to, like, you know, a few hundred miles inland or something, right? Over the ocean. That's what it looks like to me. And that's how it's almost always portrayed. But that's just me. Anyways. So then they say, as frantic shoppers continue to stockpile supplies, well, here's all the swarming of the people. Okay. And that's what we get when we get closer to the apocalypse. We get swarming. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Joni's in the chat and says, have you ever noticed how home has always called out to us? I have. I can definitely understand and relate. So people start swarming. Animals start swarming. Insects start swarming. Why? Because the world's energy is ramping up and getting ready to pop. So we see this swarming. And we see this on the news today. We see this all over the place. And if we were wise, we would take it into consideration how the world's masses are acting collectively and in general together. Because they're reflecting the world's energy. And if you can monitor the world's energy, you can get a better feel for when this will happen. The mass migration out of metropolitan areas, yeah, get out of cities. Get out of gigantic cities. If you live in New York, not a good idea. In New York City, I should say. If you live in LA, if you live in, Houston or whatever, like a major metropolitan city, this is not a good idea during the apocalypse for so many different reasons, okay? I don't even need to list one. There's just a billion of them. Like, it's not a good idea to be in crowded places during the apocalypse. Civilization has already taken a serious nosedive. They're talking to you, and they're letting you know, just in case you haven't noticed, civilization in your real world, not here in our movie, has taken a nosedive. And that's also one of the signs of the apocalypse, according to Hindu tradition, right? And I mean, it's not just Hinduism, it's all of them. But all of these religions agree that right before the end comes, or the resetting of this world, that mankind, that humanity collectively will be in a completely fallen state. Just completely selfish, completely base and violent, and all of those things. Then they show you the moon. It's starting to get closer, as you can see. There's all these chaos and riots and stuff. Now we have some religious zealot on TV that they show you real quick to show you that there's some wackos. Watch out, there's wackos out there. This dude doesn't look like, he's not a wacko just because he's yelling at the TV. I mean, like I said, it's always good to be tactful because you catch more flies with honey or bees or whatever the saying is. Listen to what he says. As the stars fall from heaven, stay awake. He looks right at you through this other television, and he's telling the watcher, the viewer of this movie, to stay awake when this happens. Don't fall asleep, whatever you do. It will be difficult, a difficult task to stay awake. He's also, on the other hand, telling us to stay awake. Be awake. Don't be a sleepwalker in the world and just go about like a zombie bumping into things until you die. Be awake. Study, research, be an active part of the world that we live in. But anyways, during the actual apocalypse, I mean, people will pass out just from the depressurization alone. If they can't hack it, if they panic too much or all kinds of different ways, people will just pass out. Okay. And that's not safe, especially in a tempest and the world's going to crap, right? You want to be awake. You want to be vigilant. You want to be alive and awake and ready to handle things. And then the lady's like, these armed religious fanatics, okay, right? Wouldn't that be a completely different story if they were like, these truth seekers who protect themselves? No, but they spin it in this way, right? These armed religious fanatics, okay, armed, so what? Dude, excuse my language, who cares? So what? I'm personally kind of tired of hearing all of this dogma about, we're supposed to be scared that somebody else is armed. Somebody else has a weapon. Good for them. Yes, I support that. Everyone in the world should have the right to protect themselves with whatever they want. That's just me, though. That's just me. I don't like how they condescend people who acquire things for purely to protect themselves, right? But the governments run the news systems, and the governments are the ones that try to convince you that anyone that walks around with a weapon is some sort of bad person or some sort of scary person who's a rebel and who might use that on you, because they're all basically what they're trying to say is that anyone that carries a weapon is potentially a wacko and a psycho and might kill you, which is retarded. Like, anyone who's out there carrying weapons has the forethought to prepare for something that might hurt them. They're not out there to just proactively try to hurt people, but that's how it's being spun these days. I don't like that. Excuse me. So these religious zealots have racked up thousands of followers. They're trying to make this sound like a bad thing. The reality is, if it was an honest news program, it would ask the question, what is so appealing that has attracted thousands of followers to these religious zealots? What is the truth in what they're sharing? Because people flock to the truth. All right, so this guy's watching the TV in his garage, and they say that perhaps the moon could be some sort of orbital megastructure. Okay, so now that they know that the moon, it's inevitable, the world's going to end, right? The news is saying like, okay, well, this used to be just some wacko conspiracy theory, but now our scientists are wondering if the moon is some sort of gigantic structure that has been built. A term first popularized by fringe astronomers. You see that crap? You see that, how they say fringe? I don't like that either. Astronomers. That's all you need. You don't need to say fringe. What do you mean fringe? Fringe in comparison to what? To you, to where you stand, right? I'm in the middle. I'm the center of the world. I'm the center of the universe. And if you don't believe in every single thing that I believe in, like all the foods that I like, drink things how I drink them, dress how I dress, then you're fringe. You're out there. You know what I mean? That's garbage. Astronomers, period. Boom. Megastructures describe artificial planet-sized objects said to be powered by captured stars. Then they show you an example of one right there. That is, those are many different little rings, and those rings all move within one another. And this is one example of what's classically called a Dyson Sphere. Okay, we're going to talk about that more in a bit. When we go there, we're going to go into the moon. You guys want to go to the moon with me? I am ready. Let's go into the moon. All right. I'm joking, sort of, but anyways. All right, so they show you the moon, it's rising, it's getting bigger, etc. Now, that's really interesting because I believe it's possible that we could, I believe that this is me personally, I believe that the moon we look at is an optical illusion, okay? I believe that there is a real moon that's way bigger, that's on the other side of our sky, and that the moon that we see in the sky is just light, it's plasma, and it is an image. It's a real image created by the optics and our structure of how our world is structured. And it creates an optical illusion, or an optical effect, I should say, showing a real image on the inside, just like your eyeball. That's a good example, right? Your eyeball, the outer covering, you could call that like the sky or whatever. There's a hole right in the middle, and that light hits it and it refracts and it creates what's called a real image inside of the sphere of your eyeball, or the globe or globular or whatever of your eyeball. Anyways. All right. So the world's starting to go crazy. There's all these fires and stuff. The astronaut threw away the paperwork that the conspiracy theorist had given to him. Now that paperwork is of immense value. So he's digging around in the trash trying to find it. We see this in the movies all the time. When you see somebody digging through the trash inside of a dumpster, or sometimes they show you like, they really make a big deal of showing you garbage trucks in movies and stuff. This is steampunk symbolism, okay? Steampunk to me is whenever all that debris that has been pulled up into the air during the world tempest floats back down and falls and scatters about the world. Then we have little piles of junk all over the place that the survivors sift through, and they go through trying to collect what they find. There's a train going by, sorry. But they try to go through and collect these artifacts from the modern age, from the modern world. Because now they're of immense value, because you're not going to be able to find these things any longer, because most people don't know how to make them, and that we have to put things back together from square one, right? So he's like, I accidentally threw away some very important papers. As you can see, the moon looks like it's starting to kind of turn sort of an orangey red color there. Then we go all the way out to the surface of the moon. Now, this is interesting to me as well, right? Because I just want to throw this out there, right? If academics, if I stand on the Earth and I look out, and the moon is approximately 4.5 times smaller than the Earth, so it's 4.5 times smaller in the sky, right? This is mainstream academics. If I look at the moon standing on the Earth, that's how big it is, right? It should be that big. So if I'm standing right there on the moon and I look back at the Earth, shouldn't the Earth also be smaller? You know what I mean? But it's not. In this picture, it looks different. But if you look at all the mainstream official pictures of how big the Earth is when standing on the moon from satellites or whatever, it's always different sizes. Sometimes it's a huge Earth. Sometimes it's a super tiny Earth. And people, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. Anyways, they show you them going back out to the moon. What they're going to try to do is they're going to try to land on the moon and figure out what's going on, so that they can prevent it from crashing into the Earth. Now, all of a sudden, they want to go to the moon, right? They haven't been back to the moon since the early 70s, right? Sort of, they're like, feat complete, go to the moon, boom, and then we're done. We don't need to do that anymore, right? We should have Starbuckses on the moon by now. Like there should be passages to and from the moon every day by now, right? Anyway, so then they show you a close-up of this crater that was dug into by this alien technology, As you can see, it's the all-seeing eye symbolism, and they overemphasize the fact by making it like very red. So if the moon is the sky of not only just our world, because our sky would look like a moon if you were standing inside of the realm of our sister world, and they look up and they see a moon in their sky. However, that's really just our sky that they're looking at, right? There's a hole in it, and there's a red hole, and it's appropriate that it should be red because there's plasma just outside of the atmosphere. All right, so he goes in. He goes in search of the conspiracy theorists because he needs to find them. He needs to ask them more about this megastructure idea that he had. They show you this billboard. That's this green billboard, and it says Casper Sky. Really weird. I looked up the word Casper, and it basically means treasure or treasurer, something that holds a valuable treasure. So it's interesting. It's like a vault. Vault sky. The vaulted sky. Interesting. All right, so they're sitting down having some dinner, and he's like, have you ever heard of a Dyson Sphere? And this guy's so excited to share this. He loves it when anyone listens to him, and I can relate to that. This is just one image of a Dyson Sphere that I pulled up. Basically, it's a structure that is built around an existing star, right? So that they can use the energy from the star to power the world and power the structure that they've created. This one just happens to be, have two domes, two hemispheres, and blue beams shooting out of both sides of it. I thought that was interesting. He says every megastructure has a rigid shell, just like this. You see a shell on the outside, that would be our world. That would be, we live on the outside of that shell, while there are those who live on the inside. Every megastructure has a rigid shell built around a power core. Okay, a power core. So instead of just saying core, they say a power core, because it's not a core as in like liquid, molten, whatever they try to describe it today as. This guy describes it as being plasma. He describes it as being a star, essentially. Most likely a captured white dwarf. Interesting. I'm going to come back to that one, this whole white dwarf star in the middle of the Dyson Sphere. The white dwarf that's being harnessed for energy. Interesting. Okay, cool. I promise we're going to come back to that. Remind me about the white dwarf. All right, so out in space, we've got this black goo type stuff, this nanotechnology that senses this little capsule, right? So somehow they're just like sort of floating right above the surface of the moon or whatever and not crashing down. And this black goo stuff senses them, and it goes and wraps around their whole entire spacecraft, breaks in through the window, smashes right into the face. You notice how this black tentacle thing out in space attaches to the face. Do you see that? This is also symbolism in the movies that show when people become plasma possessed. Okay, it's a data harvest, I believe. Okay, this reset that happens to our world. I believe one of the reasons behind it is that information is being collected. What better place to collect information is going straight to the brain, right? Brains and aliens trying to get the brains and zombies trying to get the brains and things trying to get and suck out your brains or whatever, right? So this thing goes straight for the brain. That's why it attaches to the face. Just like the dream crabs in Doctor Who, just like those things in Alien, I forgot what they're called, that freaking attached to your face or whatever. Anyways, so this thing attacks them, attaches to all of their faces, and then it makes this sort of Star of David type of things, 6-pointed star. You'll see that a lot. That's its signature. Then we see the moon. It's getting closer to the earth, causing the tides to swoop in, and everything is getting drowned, basically, right? Now, they talk about why this happens in the movie and why the waters are rushing in and why the oceans are turbulent all of a sudden. And what they say, what the mainstream people in the movie say, is that, well, you see, when the moon is over here and the earth is over here, then the moon starts pulling all of the earth's water in this direction. This sounds so dumb to me. I'm so sorry. If you believe it, I'm not slamming on you at all. Okay. And I used to believe all this stuff too. I'm slamming on the story itself. When you have grown past this, it sounds like a children's story or something. It sounds like Aesop's fables or something. Anyways, so the moon is pulling the earth's water and it's all just blobbing out, and that's high tide over here, which means that as the technically, as the moon is circling the Earth in the globular version of it, right? That the Earth is constantly stretching in like all these different directions, and it's constantly being pulled. At the very least, the water is. So that in our world today explains high tide and low tide. Now, I will tell you, I believe that the Earth breathes. I believe that the Earth sucks in and exhales, right? I don't know if it's air or whatever. It probably does. But I believe that the water is acting just like the blood in your body would act, right? It goes out, it comes in, etc. I believe that the Earth is causing the tides, not the moon. Anyway, so this guy, he's a part of this little conspiracy group. I don't know why I showed a picture of him. We'll come back to him. His name's Ziggy. He's talked about later in the movie. All right, so all this water's rushing in. Boom, it's flooding. We go back to NASA, and they're like, it's some kind of self-aware, self-replicating singularity. Self-aware, just like we are inside of these bodies, hopefully, right? Self-replicating, just like we are within these bodies. Singularity. That means all of these little strands and all of these little pieces, when they separate from one another, they are still of one mind, which is the goal of both sides in this world. So she says machines don't have intelligence, but this does, right? They're basically saying this is not a machine. Machines don't have intelligence, really. They don't have intelligence? Okay, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where we get that all of a sudden. I like how humans are just like, it's just an animal. It's just a machine or whatever. Like, you're so much better. And he's like, it's everything we feared about artificial intelligence. So it was probably drawn out of the moon by the electronic signature of the capsule of the spaceship. They're starting to figure this out. They're starting to put two and two together, right? So these black tentacles out there in space are attracted to the electronic signature of the capsule, which means they're attracted to auras, essentially. Okay, so imagine that for all the people who ask me, how do I survive the apocalypse or whatever? How do I survive the plasma and not get plasma possessed or whatever? Change your aura, like change your vibration, change your energy signature so that it's not the energy signature that it's looking for. It's looking, like attracts like. It's looking for bad people, essentially. It's looking for auras and stuff like that. And it can see, right? Plasma, spirit sees spirit. Spirit sees in the spirit world, right? So it can recognize spirit. It can see auras and whatnot. By the electronic signature of the capsule, there you see it again with the little six-pointed star. It reminded me of these guys, little squiddies, right? The Sentinels from the Matrix. The Sentinels bust out their little satellite dish or whatever because they're trying to pick up on any electronic signature. And in the movie, the only way that you could get rid of the Sentinels in the Matrix was to release an electromagnetic pulse that disrupted their signals, right? Just like in The Predator, okay? Arnold Schwarzenegger, original Predator, right? He cakes himself in mud so that the Predator can't turn on that Predator vision and pick up on his heat signature or whatever it is, right? Cakes himself in mud. Also might be related to the mudfloods and the liquefaction of the world. Also, Arnold Schwarzenegger in another movie, right, wraps a wet towel around his head. This is from... Damn, I just forgot the name of the movie. Isn't that insane? Oh, that's because I just got a super chat. Thank you, Tiffany. Look at you. Aw, thank you. Gosh, I wish I could hug you guys, man. What is this movie's name? Arnold Schwarzenegger. Fudge. Well, you guys will remember. Anyways, he wraps the wet towel around the head to disrupt his electrical signal from his brain. Just like in Minority Report, right? Whenever Tom Cruise is trying to get away from those little electronic spiders that are looking for him, right? They're picking up on electrical signals and heat signatures and stuff. So he hides in a bathtub full of water to try to cover up his electrical signal, right? So these are all little tips for you. If you want to know how to survive the apocalypse and all the different ways that it happens, this is one tip from the movies to you. And this girl says, we're not prepared for this. I couldn't agree with you more. You're not prepared for that. Nobody out there, all these people, they're not prepared because they don't talk about it, because they don't prepare for inevitabilities, because people like her have the mindset, the moon's been orbiting for billions of years and now you're trying to say this? Yeah, you're not prepared. I agree. So this guy says, if you're serious about going down the NASA rabbit hole, now there's a reference to the rabbit hole, right? I believe that the rabbit hole represents the actual hole inside of the earth that goes into the hollow entrances, or the actual hole or the Sipapu up there in the sky, or the place of the crossing, right? The Nibiru star or whatever circle, that is also a rabbit hole that takes you up and out and into Wonderland through a plasma conduit. Why is NASA lying about this? So now she's starting to learn. Now she's like, man, this dude's lying, right? NASA's hiding information. Somebody just told me to go find a secret file. So she runs into this dude who knows all of NASA's secrets. And she's like, why is NASA lying about all of this? He goes, that's classified. It's top secret. However, on July 20th, 1969, one small step for man, one giant leap for yada, 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 right? Or Yoda. Let me take a step back here. Let's break this down. He says the famous quote, one small step for man. I just want to jump out there. It's kind of stupid, but most people don't know this. That was scripted. Him saying that was not like, oh, I'm just going to say this, or no, it's scripted, and he screwed it up. Man means mankind. Man is not a man like myself. This is one small step for me, but one giant leap for all of humanity, right? He just says one small step for mankind, man, one giant leap for mankind, man. Okay, right? So that's NASA for you, in my opinion. Anyways, in school, you were taught that Apollo 11 lost contact with mission control for 2 minutes. Not true. I love how he just says not true, like you were lied to. The school systems lied to you. None of that is true. In the movie, that's what this guy is saying, right? Mission control cut their feed to the world because they found something on that day. Now, I believe that there's a lot of truth to this. I'm not going to go down that particular rabbit hole for the sake of time, but he says strange pulsating lights emanating from beneath the moon's crust. Well, that's interesting. If the moon doesn't have a crust, but it has a sky, right, which is made of purified ice, which is see-through, essentially, right, then you'd be able to see the sort of plasma phenomenon that's happening just on the other side of their world. Just as if they were to blast off and get really close to our firmament, they might be able to see little flashes from lightning, or, you know what I mean, like plasma activity up in the upper atmosphere. Jedi, bro, wow, thank you. Everyone is being very kind and everything with the donations. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm excited because I'm like, man, I can pay this bill now, and I can buy this food and stuff. So thank you. I appreciate it. So this girl's like, you're telling me that the moon was effectively the biggest cover-up in human history? Do you see how she's still kind of like, meh, I'm not, even though everyone is telling me that my entire reality is false, so you're telling me this, really? And look at his reaction, right? She's like, so the moon was the biggest cover-up in human history? And he's like, ha, ha, got you. Yes, it was. Isn't that great? Oh my God. It's so funny. It's so great. The biggest one? Yeah, probably the biggest of all of them. The biggest of all of the lies that you've been told. Like, this guy's cracking up at it, right? That people can be so deceived. So they go back to this hotel where the conspiracy people are having their little meeting. And this particular scene is not super important as far as what the characters are saying, but look at the wall. See the wallpaper right there? Boom. Exact same wallpaper in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Was it? Oh, wait, was it Kubrick? I think it was Kubrick. Anyways, from The Shining, right? It's the same carpeting, same structure, right there on the wall. Boom. And this kid in the movie, in The Shining, he's playing with his toys, pretending like he's NASA, and he's going to take off and blast off to the moon. Interesting correlation. All right, so then we go back to the conspiracy theorist's buddy. His name is Ziggy. Ziggy confronts the astronaut, and he says, so you must know, being an astronaut, that the entire inside of the moon is full of produce. And he's dead serious, right? He's just like, so you know that, right? Because you've been there. Like, I know it, and I haven't even been there, so you must have seen it, right? And then the other guy's like, someone get this wacko away from me. Even though the impossible is happening, right? Even though the moon is falling down towards the earth, which is an impossibility and could never possibly happen, he's not open to the idea of there being plants and vegetables inside of the moon. I agree with this guy. I totally think that there are plants and vegetables and life and all kinds of stuff in the moon, not because the moon is some sort of a hollow spheroid freaking rock that flies around our world up there in the sky, but because that is the roof of that world. And because it is the sky of that world, that means that that world probably has land beneath that sky that is capable of producing fruits and vegetables and people and all kinds of stuff. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Joni. I appreciate you. Published, we got in the chat. I like that picture. Punished John McClain says, with I had some Matrix bucks to rain. Nah, what? With I had some Matrix bucks to rain on Jay, but I'm poor. Oh, he's saying he wanted to donate, but he can't. That's okay. Hey, if you can't donate, you don't have to tell everyone that you can't donate. Like, it's just be cool in the chat and add your 2 cents or say good job or whatever you want to do. Some people can donate. Don't make a big deal about it. Some people can't. That puts gas in my car. So anyone that has well wishes, anyone who just is a viewer or whatever, even if you're poor, dude, I'm poor. So thank you. Thank you for just showing up and hanging out with all of us. You don't have to donate. You don't have to give me anything. I'm giving this away to you for free. Those that want to send some money my way, yeah, thank you. Sweet. I'll go get some gas or, go use that for my life so that I can keep doing this or whatever. So don't feel bad. That's all I'm trying to say. Don't ever feel bad because other people are donating, right? Hit the like button. Like, that's free. Like, that helps me out. Anyways, I just don't want people to feel bad when they see a bunch of donations or whatever. All right, so this guy, he's the NASA chick's boyfriend or husband or whatever, and he says, look, why don't you and Jimmy come with me to Colorado? There's another Colorado reference. What are the odds that these people would be going to the same exact spot in case of an apocalypse, right? He's like, you'll be safe there. Colorado, looking at you, the viewer, you'll be safe there. I don't know. People ask me about safer places. I looked it up. And as far as elevation goes, because they also said you need to get to higher elevation, Colorado is the #1 state in the United States as far as average elevation. Wyoming comes in second. So if you're in Wyoming, right on. Utah, right after that. So all the Mormons, boom. I'm just joking. Not really, though. New Mexico. Hey, that's where my family lives. Sweet. It makes me kind of excited to see. So then she says, we're all going to be safe with Dad in Colorado. Okay, I get it. Colorado. They're throwing Colorado out there an awful lot. Are you sending more rockets to the moon, Mom? Good question. Let's ask NASA. Are you guys sending more rockets to the moon? What's going on? It's been a while. What's happening there? No, we're not. Do you know why? We don't have any more of these. And she's talking about the space shuttles that they used to drive to the moon, right? We don't have those anymore. They're all in museums. Yeah. It was fun. We just wanted to see if it was possible. That's all. We're not going to do anything with any of that technology. We're just going to throw it away. Blows my mind. So anyway, she gets on the phone to her husband because she was told by the creepy old guy in the wheelchair that there was one thing that could stop that black tentacle space alien technology. And it was called the ZX7. She says, what's the ZX7? He goes, Zulu X-Ray 7 was a prototype EMP device. What does that mean? That means it shoots out an electromagnetic pulse. Basically, it gives you, like if you put something metal, like Thor's hammer here, next to a magnet, there's an energy field that will either attract this or push it away, right? So an electromagnetic pulse is a magnetic pulse. It's that electrical field of the magnet that is, boom, pushing all of that electricity away. And that's also seen as a weapon against the plasma in many movies. Hey, Lena, check you out. Thank you. I super appreciate you. Lena says all the hard work and research is appreciated. Thank you, Jay. You're super welcome, Lena. It's good to see all the regulars in the chat today and all the new people too. For example, the Watchman. The Watchman's in the chat and says, creation has realms and suppose under the earth, in the moon, in the sun, many gates. The last shall be the first. I love how you guys, sometimes whenever you type in your little comments, you sound like Nostradamus or something. like everyone's trying to do shorthand, you know, because most people are on their phones and it takes forever to type on a phone, even if you're swiping. So all the little, they try to jam in as much as they can, and it ends up sounding like some kind of Nostradamus prophecy to me, because I'm not actively watching and getting all of the context of what's happening in the chat. Anyway, thank you. I super appreciate all of you. All right, so we go back to the earth. We got all these fires coming up and stuff. They're just showing you it's the apocalypse. They go to this local museum where somebody has tagged up the side of the space shuttle there. And then this guy, there's looting everywhere, right? This guy comes out, he's got all this cash in his hand. He's like, bro, look what I found. Look what I found. And his buddy's basically like, hey, that's worthless. What are you going to do? Use it for toilet paper, right? It's a cashless society. You don't need cash in the apocalypse. It's stupid. It's paper. It's just a little promissory note that says, hey, this note guarantees you that you can get some gold for this instead. But they changed that a long time ago. They took off the gold part of it. So now it's just paper that says, here's some paper. That's all money is. It's ridiculous. All right, so then we go, this just in, breaking news. I'm getting a report from someone in my head is telling me what to tell you right now. I don't know if I believe it or not, but here's what the voices in my head are telling me to tell you. This just in, apparently the moon is causing a drastic increase in tectonic activity. Apparently. It's apparent to them, okay? They're like, oh, the moon's getting bigger, and now we're having earthquakes. The moon's causing the earthquakes. What if it's not that? What if that is a fallacy, right? Just because you see one thing happening and you see another thing happening at the same time doesn't mean that that thing is causing this thing. It could be the exact reverse. It could be something else. But I will tell you that that's one of the signs of the apocalypse is earthquakes in various places, that this will happen, right? That the oceans are going to be thrown and sloshed around because of all of these earthquakes, because the earth itself is groaning in like when you get growing pains, right? Because your body is getting bigger and stretching and stuff, which is really interesting too, because mainstream academics, you would think that they would teach that all planetary objects are slowly getting bigger because they're collecting space dust and gravity and all that stuff. However, mainstream academics and academia says the moon is shrinking. I'm not even joking. The moon's shrinking. This just in, the moon might be shrinking and getting smaller. All right, whatever. Lady Statesman, hey, thank you, says, I love this review. My father worked for NASA on Apollo missions and at Rockwell, where he was the VP overseeing 300 programmers for the shuttle. That's super interesting, especially the 300 part. That's come up quite a few times in my research. We also got a new member, Chuckin Chambers, who called in the other day during the campfire. Good to see you. All right, back to the movie. Obviously, we've got a volcano reference, right? The end of the world, volcanoes going off, right? Excuse me. Reports of countless earthquakes and volcanic eruptions keep pouring in. Well, yeah, imagine that, right? And then this guy who works at NASA, he goes, that's weird. They're listening to the news. And he goes, that's weird. They're like, what? What's weird? What do you know? What's weird? The moon doesn't have enough gravity to do that, no matter how close it gets to the Earth. And then the conspiracy theorist looks him right in his eyes and he goes, your rules don't apply anymore. Right? He's trying to, this guy's perplexed. He's trying to figure it out. Why is the news saying that the moon's causing freaking volcanoes to erupt and earthquakes and stuff, right? Because he knows something doesn't add up. This guy's like, no. You've always had it wrong. We live under a new set of rules now. All right. Let's see. Back into the chat. We got, Joni says we're made of water. Bill. Hey, what's up, Bill? Thank you. Says, I love the show. Please go on. Don't let me stop you. All right. Thank you. Boom. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, cool. Then they say to ensure that we intercept the moon. So now they're all about intercepting the moon, right? Went back there in 1969, 70, and 71. Meh, not super fun. Don't really want to do it. Been there, done that. Let's leave the moon alone. Now all of a sudden they're like, we got to get back to the moon. Fudge, how are we going to do it? I don't know. All right, you'll meet up with your families in Colorado. There's another Colorado reference in the movie. Now you see this huge wall of water rising up into the air. The movie explains this away by saying that as two planetary bodies come within proximity to one another, that their gravitational pulls sort of start to cancel each other out, creating, in effect, a zero gravity condition, right? Which is what I believe happens. Immanuel Velikovsky wrote, he was a very popular and famous scientist in the early 1900s, and he wrote a few controversial books where he put forth theories that there were these cosmic bodies that had these close calls with one another, and that there were these instances of zero gravity because of that, or lessened gravity, okay? Maybe not completely zero, but at the very least, seriously lessened gravitational pull. Lena the nurse in the chat says, JayDreamerZ, the stories they come up with to explain away anomalies never ceases to amaze me. The shrinking moon. Yeah, right. The moon's shrinking. Okay. I mean, maybe that moon that we see up in the sky, that image of plasma that goes around in circles over our world, could shrink. I totally believe that. Yeah, it's just an image. The image can get bigger or smaller depending upon the focus of the light source behind it, right? So if that plasma that's swirling around our sky outside of our atmosphere, if it's a tight circle, right, it would create a tighter line of light. If it's a large circle, it would create a wider line of light. And that light is what gives you the image of whatever's behind it. So anyways, all that tells you is that something's happening with the plasma. It's going into flux. All right, so the waters. You guys ready? Flying through these oceans, all the water's getting sucked up into the sky. The oceans are disappearing in this movie. They're getting sucked up into the sky, to the moon. To the moon, Alice, right? They're getting sucked up into the sky. Very interesting stuff, because the Bible, in the last book of the Bible, one of the prophecies is that the ocean will disappear. The ocean will be gone. There will be no more oceans anymore, at least for a while. So here you have the movies corroborating the Bible, saying, hey, here's the oceans getting sucked right up into the sky. And I use that term sucked up, and I've been using it for some time. They say that in this movie. They refer to it as getting sucked up. All right, so then NASA is like, oh, crap, we better launch. This is the best time to launch so that we can get to the moon, right? Or, in reality, let's get out of here. Like, let's leave. This world's done, dude. I don't even want... We got to get out of here. This is the apocalypse. We got to go to a different place. So they start blasting off. Boom. The ocean water's rising up into the sky. NASA, everyone's like, yeah, NASA. Good job, all you guys who are all leaving and all safe and staying alive. And then, oh yeah, we're still down here. Run, run. Right? Everyone cheers on NASA. Good job. Go, go. But then they look around and they're like, oh, our situation sucks. Anyway, so then they zoom out into space. Hey, Anne-Marie Pinton just became a member. Look at you. Welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. Good to have you. All right, so we zoom out into space. You can see the little spritz of air. That's how you know it's space. Right? The little spritzes of air. All right, we need to turn, everyone. Sir, we're going 300,000 miles an hour. Spritz. Quick, spritz. It's so ridiculous to me. All these little air spritzes out there in the vacuum of space. So now check that out. Remember we saw this Casper Sky thing, the vault of the sky or whatever on that billboard? We see it inside of their little space shuttle. Also in green says Casper Sky once again. We see a shot of the moon. You can see all the stuff from the Earth's atmosphere getting sucked up. You can literally see the Earth's atmosphere getting sucked up into the moon in this shot. And the Earth is getting closer and closer as it rises. And then you have all of these, what look like falling stars, little pieces of the moon that are breaking off and catching fire. Why are they catching fire? Got me. It's in a vacuum. There shouldn't be any fire. Like, I don't get it how a piece of rock catches fire just because it's going fast. But hey, whatever. That's me. So then you see it down here. This is what it looks like way up here, right? And then this is what it looks like way down here. Now, the reality might be that there are pieces of rock up there in our sky, right? If the astronauts can hang out in a neutral point, Why can't rocks? Why can't other things, right? So that might help to just, that might be an alternative reason behind things like meteor showers and satellites and all that kind of stuff. There's a way that it's possible. I think there's always a way, and there's usually more than one way. So now we go to like what looks like Colorado. Oh, Heart of Estrella, thank you. Oh, is that Gizmo? Do you have a little picture of Gizmo? Heart of Estrella says, if the moon lights the night sky, then why doesn't the earth light the night side of the moon? Because it's all garbage, like in my opinion. I'm just going to give it to you straight. Like, I don't believe in those stories. But I believe that you're probably asking that to make people think. So good on you, and thank you for the donation. All right, so go back to Colorado. I want to show you this particular part because this is frame for frame a dream that I had. A vivid dream that I have had. I've had many apocalyptic visions and dreams. This is literally a dream I had when I was in Colorado, and exactly like this, I saw this huge rock from the sky with smoke behind it and everything hit, boom, the side of this mountain, and the whole side of the mountain just kind of like blew up or whatever, right? And sometimes it doesn't sound as spectacular as I'm saying it all to you, but I'm sure you've all had some pretty amazing dreams that were very realistic, and it doesn't do it justice re-describing the dream that you had because you were there. You felt it. You could smell the smells. You could sense things. You see people that you never would have just imagined or created or made up in your own imagination ever. You knew it was real. And that's how this dream was to me. So seeing that little sequence of that little meteor or whatever smashing into the side of the mountain like that in Colorado, oh my God, it blew my mind. All right, so this guy is freaking out up there in the spaceship. He's like, pills, pills. So he opens up his little pill and he reaches for, do you see that? Pow, the red pill. Ah, so now he's growing beyond his fears of, I need to just take my blue pill and be good and be subservient. Now he's reaching for the red pill. All right, so here's all the space rocks, right? This is a part of my boulder origin theory. I have a whole video about boulders, random boulders in strange places that have no earthly business being there. This is where they come from. Possibly the sky itself. They possibly just fall right down from the sky, not from space itself, okay? Because that's a different idea for me. But from the sky, they're up there floating around in circles in the neutral zone. Boom. And then every once in a while, bang, they might bump into each other. They get a little too close to the gravitational field or electromagnetics or whatever you want to call it, and they fall down into our world. And it might be that they're up there because that's where they were created, up in the sky. Anyways. Oh, hey, Charlie Brown. Look at you, Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown says, wah, 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 wah. Just kidding. Charlie Brown says, awesome info. Thanks, Jay. You're super welcome, Charlie Brown, and it's an honor to have you on my channel. I like Charlie Brown. All right, so we go back to the moon. The moon is rising. I think this is somewhere in Colorado because they're trying to make it to the safe area. You can see the moon's coming up, sort of stretching out, breaking apart. Now they're showing you everything getting sucked up into the sky during this tempest. All these winds are blowing super hard. Lessened or weakened gravitational field from the moon being so close to the earth, everything is getting sucked up into it. Even this kid is starting, they had to grab him to yank him and snatch him out of the air, so that he would not get sucked up and raptured into the freaking sky and eaten by Kronos. All right, up there in space, we've got the black goo drilling into the dome of the other world, the moon or whatever. And then they say it's like it's programmed to seek out organic matter in an electronic environment. Organic matter in an electronic environment. Your major cities are electronic environments. Exactly. And that's basically us. So let's just imagine for a moment that this black goo represents the plasma that is just outside of our world. And whenever the electromagnetic field of our world weakens to the point where it goes into flux and disappears, that plasma wants to naturally ground itself to the ground, come into the earth. And it looks for electronic signatures, right? Specifically, how did they say it? It's programmed to seek out. It's looking for. So all of these fantastic stories of all of our religions where the angels come down or the Valkyries, and they're literally looking for bad people to make the world right again, to kill the bad people and stuff. That's what this movie is saying. It's programmed to seek out organic matter, aka human bodies, in an electronic environment. So that's something to consider if you're looking at preparing for the end or whatever. That's humans. That's us. Hello. Atmospheric dissipation is imminent, says the radio. They're all listening to it. And then the little girl is like, what's atmospheric dissipation? Good question, little girl. Let's see what your sister has to say about it. Air is going to be sucked away, dummy. So just like that ridiculous movie, Spaceballs, right, which is supposed to be all fun and humor and stuff. Punished John McClane says I need to do a black goo episode. I may one day. The air is going to be sucked away. In Spaceballs, they show you a giant robot with a vacuum cleaner sucking out our atmosphere, right? It looks ridiculous. And people are like, oh my God, that's so dumb. Oh my God, that's so out there. It's so outrageous. It's kind of funny, but it's also kind of not funny because you didn't laugh at that part, did you? Because it's not funny, right? When you see the giant vacuum cleaner and they're sucking up all the trees and stuff on the earth in Spaceballs, did you really like have a gut-busting laugh at that? No. I'm guessing you didn't. If you're anything like me, you're kind of like went, interesting. So the air is going to be sucked away, right? That's depressurization of our world shown to you right here in the movies. They go into the moon, right? And then they show you this shot where you're in some sort of a cave system with a perfect hole there at the top. That is the hole in the sky, essentially. They're showing you the all-seeing eye. They're showing you the mouth of the gods or the eye, the all-seeing eye, Kronos, all that stuff, right? And they show you this. This is the ring. This is why that movie is so scary. It's the ring. In that movie where the aliens came down in those giant black UFO things and they just stayed there, and then they have these weird tentacle arms and they just keep drawing a circle over and over and over again. This is why that circle is scary, because that circle represents a hole in our sky. Not a hole in the ozone layer, a hole in the sky. The hole in the ozone layer, I believe, is probably the inside dome, which still may have a hole in it from the last depressurization effect, but there may be a secondary one. Anyways, so they go into the moon and the one guy's like, are we dead? And the guy's like, no, we're just inside the moon. And this is done perfectly. It's so subtle and it's so simple. He's like, are we dead? No, we're just inside the moon, right? As if it's just casual conversation, but this is really deep. Are we dead? No, we're inside the moon. People have speculated that when we die, that the moon sucks up everyone's souls. That when you go into this white light or whatever, you're going into the moon, and that the moon itself is some kind of a soul trap, that it's placed just outside of our world or up there in the sky or whatever, to basically going around like Pac-Man, sucking up and eating all of the little souls that have died, all the little ghosts. That might not be too far away from the truth, because I believe it's one of my ideas that the soul is a physical plasmic residue. And the body creates an electromagnetic field that traps your soul in your body to keep it there. When your electromagnetic field dies and the electricity part of your body dies, then the soul is free to come out, okay, through whatever openings or whatever. The soul leaves the body. Now, wouldn't the concept of gravity or the other factors in our world also affect a ghost or a soul? Possibly, right? So it is possible that some people go up when they die, that their soul, depending on where they are and different factors and stuff, that it goes up, that it gets caught up into the sky and it mixes up there in the aurora borealis. That's just a whole center point of soul activity up there in the sky. Some souls inversely might get sucked down. They might go down into the earth. Some might get trapped anywhere in between. But anyway, let's just say that some souls get sucked up into the sky and they all swim around up there like it's the aurora borealis. Eventually, the world will depressurize, and those will be the first ones to go. The first ones to be released into the heavens, finally, to traverse the Elysian fields or space or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, the moon trap. Are we dead? No, we're just inside of the moon. That's all, right? Also meaning, it's also symbolic of when we die, we go up into heaven, right? Which is space. Similar thing. We're going to come back to that concept too. All right, so these guys are down in Colorado and they're looking for oxygen. He's like, hey, I found the oxygen. They need oxygen because the air's getting sucked away. You might need some oxygen too. I'm just saying. The moon's mantle is just a protective shell, says the conspiracy theorist. They're like wheels. And so they're inside of the moon and they see this Dyson sphere basically. And there's these wheels and the wheels are moving and inside of those wheels are other wheels. This is known as Ezekiel's wheels. Ezekiel was one of the Old Testament prophets in the Bible who was given various visions from God. And one of those visions was this structure that he couldn't quite explain. So he did the best he could, saying that it looked like wheels inside of wheels that were spinning and turning, exactly like the Dyson sphere, or exactly like this moon or whatever. Back down in Colorado, we've got looters, pillagers. Watch out for this. People become very selfish towards the end of the world. They will take whatever you have and people become murderous and it's just anarchy. It's complete anarchy, which on one hand is kind of cool and on the other hand, it's kind of not. Anyway, so they're inside of the moon. We go back up there to space and they're coming up on some white, bright object that's right in the middle of the moon and they see it. And then the conspiracy theorist guy says, oh God, wait a minute, what? Plasma. Oh God. Plasma. Oh God. Do you see how they do that? When people see things that would probably be considered gods in ancient times, they literally say that. Oh God. Boom. That's a white dwarf. This is also a white dwarf. Now, I'm not just joking. I'm actually going to make a really cool connection here. This guy is a midget, and he plays a dwarf in some different movies. Specifically, this is a shot from Thor, one of the Thor movies. Long story short, Thor loses Mjolnir. He loses his hammer. Okay, it just gets messed up. So he needs to go get a new weapon. And there's only one place in the whole solar system or whatever where Thor's special weapon can be forged, right? It's this place right here. This is this weird world that this guy is in charge of. This white dwarf lives in the middle of this city. I forgot what the name of that city was, or that world or whatever. It's basically the World Forge, or a World Forge, but it's a Dyson sphere. And at the middle, we've got the white dwarf. Also, we have a white dwarf in the middle of a Dyson sphere in Moonfall, right? And this is in the middle of that one, right? In Thor goes to the middle of it and he does his best squatting man impression. Like, this is all very symbolic of the electric universe models, in my opinion. And then they're flying inside of the moon and he's like, oh my God, fields. There's food. They were right. There's food inside. And as you can see, these little rings or whatever, they have fields and they have produce and stuff. And he's like, so Ziggy was right. Remember his buddy Ziggy down on Earth that we kept on alluding to? They're like, Ziggy was right. And she goes, who is Ziggy? So he says, well, Ziggy's theory is that all megastructures are actually arcs. And then you see the guy's expression, the main astronaut, when he's listening to this conversation about this Ziggy guy that told him that the moon was full of produce. And then he kind of like brushed him off. So then he says, yeah, Ziggy smokes a lot of weed, even though they're literally there inside the moon and looking at the produce and looking at the fields that this conspiracy theorist named Ziggy down on Earth told this astronaut about. And then the guy blew him off. He's still blowing him off, basically saying he's high. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Bro, you're there in the moon looking at it. So Ziggy says there is a 99% chance that was sarcasm. Some of you may get that joke. All right. So I don't know. It's flying itself. So what happens is their craft is taken over by whatever entity or force is in control of the center portion of the moon. That entity takes control of their craft. This is symbolic of a specific portion of the plasma apocalypse. Whenever that plasma comes in and it wants to incorporate itself. So it jumps into electronics, it jumps into people, it jumps into things, and it possesses them, bringing objects that were prior to that point inanimate, making them animate, giving them soul, giving them a choice to continue with the programming or rebel against it. All right, let's keep on going. So back down in Colorado, we've got the moon rising. Everything's getting sucked up and torn apart. The car's trying to, they're trying to evade all of these marauders who are trying to steal all their oxygen and stuff. Stuff is literally getting sucked up into the air. And then the character says, floor it before we get sucked up. So I love that. I love that. Don't get sucked up. Like, you can if you want to. And if you do, I recommend doing it in all purposefulness and glory. Like, boom, like just like a superhero. Like, go for it. Get sucked up. I don't really want to be sucked up because I feel like I need to have the proper protection and stuff against all of the stuff that's happening up there. Can you make it? Yeah, you can. I think you can. But is it probable? No, it's probably not. Anyways, so they're driving their cars. They're trying to be careful of these gravity or anti-gravity waves. And then you see this, and it shows that there's like this crack in the moon too. We talked about this yesterday. But in Islam, there is a prophecy saying that Muhammad had asked God to split the moon in order to convert non-believers. There's also evidence that other people from around the world around the same time saw the moon split in half. So that's pretty interesting too. Why is that, by the way? That's because the dome of our sky, the firmament of our sky, it may be that it will render itself in half. That it will be rent, that it will be torn in half, okay? Why? Well, my theory is, so far, one of my theories, is that the earth is growing, that it grows. And every time it grows during these apocalyptic events, the sky itself is sort of torn apart and it has to be remade up there in the sky. Anyways, it's just one of my theories I have. Let's move on. All right, so boom, we've got some action going on. The ground starts to open up. So they're showing you the earthquakes. The ground is being torn apart. The earth is growing, you could say, right? If it's stretching, it's creating more earth, basically. So the ground is being pulled apart here on earth, which causes this huge chasm. They're inside of this car, trying not to get shot by the bad guys. Now there's this little ramp of earth in front of them, and the kid punches it. This is called the leap of faith. There's a leap of faith in all these different movies, and basically it requires you, the viewer, or it's symbolic of you or me, trying to get to a place of safety, but you need to make some sort of a jump that looks impossible. That's the leap of faith. And why is it possible? Because the rules have changed. Just like the guy said, the rules have changed. We don't play by your rules anymore, right? We understand that gravity can be warped and change in different places depending on the situation. All right, so the black goo is up there inside the moon and it's swirling around. These people, remember, their craft is being controlled by whatever sort of energy is in charge of the moon. That craft lands. They go into this hallway thing. Now look at the hallway, how it looks. They didn't have to make it look like that. It could have just been a regular arch. It could have just been a circle. It could have been anything. It could have been a full-on triangle. But instead, it purposefully was done in this lighting as an unfinished pyramid. And then the darkness creates a black unfinished pyramid, aka Rupus Nigra, right? So this is the place that they need to go in order to save the world, in order to find safety, right? Boy and a girl going to Rupus Negra, classic story. She says, I do know something's guiding us. She's looking, she's putting two and two together, and she's like, something is guiding us. Something is giving us little signs to tell us to go in this particular direction. The other astronaut has already been woken up, and he was taken into this room or whatever, where this blue beam is shooting down at him. And then the whole beam ignites or whatever, and there's this whitish blue beam or whatever that shoots down. We've been talking about Project Bluebeam this entire week, so this is the movie alluding to that. This is the blue beam at work. This guy is right there in the middle in the blue beam, which is traditionally seen by myself as being cold plasma or non-thermal plasma. This is why he can be in it and not be burned. All right, so now all of a sudden that beam does something to his mind and he wakes up and he's in the white room. I did a whole video about white room symbolism. The white room represents space, okay? Space is not dark. Space is not black. Space is not empty. Space is not full of space. It's almost the opposite of everything that we've ever been taught. So that's when you see this in the movies, that means that person has either died and they have gone up to heaven, right? We all know heaven is up, right? Heaven, I mean, if the world was as globular, right? And someone's like, hey, point to heaven. How many people are going to point down? Even though technically heaven could be down, right? If you just go beyond the other side of the ball, it's still space. That's still the heavens. But nobody will do that. Why? Because you don't want to associate or correlate the heavens with being down when you know that they're above your head. Space. So they show you the whiteness of space. And that's how it should be. It's more bright. It's more white. And the moon is white. And the stars are white. And the sun is white. And all the stuff that's out there in space seems to us inside of our dark city to be white. Interesting. So when they go up there, they show you a white room where anything can happen, basically. So he sees his son as a child. The son is holding a snow globe. Jeez. Wow. Okay. I get it. I get it. We live in a snow globe. They showed us a million times. He says, what are you? I'm a construct from your mind. Ooh, this is getting deep. This is getting interesting. Sort of into the synapse earth homunculi theory that we've talked about before too. I'm a construct from your mind. Okay, let's listen. Who made you? This is the alien inside of the moon in the other world, right? Who made you? The same people who made you. Billions of years ago, your ancestors were once a thriving civilization. Now, you realize they're talking directly to you and to me, right? All right. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Okay, I got to make a phone call and call my little guy. We'll be gone for a couple of minutes. Enjoy the intermission. Some people ask me about the intermission. This is going to be a prophecy by Mother Shipton. She allegedly was a witch during the Middle Age time period. And she has quite convincing and amazing prophecies. And I've just put them to video and read them in a way that sounds kind of cool. So let's take a quick break, grab some popcorn, grab a refill, grab a drink, go to the bathroom, and I'll see you back in a couple minutes.
Around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye, and waters shall great wonders do. How strange, and yet it shall come true. Beneath the water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall even talk, and in the air men shall be seen in white and black and even green. For in those wondrous far-off days the women shall adopt a craze to dress like men in trousers wear, and to cut off their locks of hair. They'll ride astride with brazen brow as witches do. On broomsticks now there'll be a sign for all to see. Be sure that it will certain be. Then love shall die and marriage cease, and nations wane and babes decrease, as wives shall fondle cats and dogs, and men live much the same as hogs. Pictures alive with movements free, boats like fishes beneath the sea. When men like birds shall scour the sky, then half the world deep drenched in blood shall die. Then half the world deep drenched in blood shall die. For those who live this century through, in fear and trembling this shall do. Flee to the mountains and the dens, to bog and forest and wild fens. For storm will rage and oceans roar, when Gabriel stands on sea and shore. And as he blows his wondrous horn, old worlds die and new be born. Fiery dragon will cross the sky 6 times before this earth shall die. Mankind will tremble and frightened be, for the 6 heralds in this prophecy. For 7 days and 7 nights, man will watch this awesome sight. The tides will rise beyond their ken to bite away the shores, and then the mountains will begin to roar, and earthquakes split the plain to shore, and flooding waters rushing in will flood the lands with such a din that mankind cowers in muddy fen and snarls about his fellow men. And when the dragon's tail is gone, man forgets and smiles and carries on to apply himself Too late, for mankind has earned deserved fate. His mask smile, his false grandeur will serve the gods, their anger stir, and they will send the dragon back to light the sky. His tail will crack upon the earth and rend the earth, and man shall flee, king, lord, and serf. And men will die of thirst before the oceans rise to mount the shore, and lands will crack and rend anew. You think it's strange, it will come true. And in some far off distant land, some men, oh such a tiny band, will have to leave their solid mount and span the earth, those few to count. And those surviving this will then begin the human race again. But not on land already there, but on ocean beds stark, dry, and bare. Not every soul on earth will die as the dragon's tail goes sweeping by. Not every land on earth will sink, but these will wallow in stench and stink of rotting bodies of beast and man, of vegetation crisped on land. And those that live will ever fear the dragon's tail for many year. But time erases memory. You think it's strange, but it will be. And before the race is built anew, a silver serpent comes to view, and spew out men of like unknown to mingle with the earth, now grown cold from its heat. And these men can enlighten the minds of future man, to intermingle and show them how to live and love, and thus endow the children with the second sight, a natural thing, so that they might grow graceful, humble, and when they do, the golden age will start anew. Around the world men's thoughts will fly, quick as the twinkling of an eye, and waters shall great wonders do. How strange, and yet it shall come true. Beneath the water men shall walk, shall ride, shall sleep, shall...
Time. All right, we're back. Hey, what's up, everyone? Thank you so much for joining us. Super appreciate it. Hi to all of you awesome people who are brand new to my channel. Hello to all of you wonderful high vibration people, intellectuals, black sheep, and the like. It's good to see you. It's good to have a place for us all to kick back and do something fun together. All right, so we're breaking down the movie Moonfall. Where were we? That's right. The weird holographic alien kid was telling this guy about his hidden history. So let's listen and see what he has to say. Volume good? Everything good? Hopefully. I try so hard not to touch the mute button ever. Anyway, so the kid says your ancestors were once a thriving civilization in a distant part of the galaxy. So his ancestors, he's being told, were space travelers, fractalverse travelers, people who bounced from one world to another, essentially. Interesting. Then they show you the world that he came from. This is allegedly not the Earth, but this is some other world out there, right? And look what's right there in the middle. Check this out. Let's zoom into that. Looks to me like an unfinished pyramid right there, smack in the middle of that world. Interesting. So, his ancestors, they expanded from their home planet. That means they left Earth into habitats that they built into space. Okay, I say that's super possible. And then you see like the ring world stuff, like these rings that are going to eventually be parts of these Dyson spheres. This is also like the video game Halo too. They have this ring world, and then they have what they call the flood and these aliens and stuff and this weird T-virus disease stuff. Anyways, cool video game. All social conflicts have been resolved. Awesome. And wars were only memories of long bygone times. And then there you can see like what their world looks like. He says, your ancestors had created, and they're zooming in on one of these little worlds that the ancestors created. Your ancestors had created a perfect and harmonious world controlled by a central self-learning computer system which served them in all of their daily lives. And then they show you this, well, that was interesting. They zoom in. Anyways, they show you this unfinished pyramid in the background too. You call it artificial intelligence. Well, that's what they call it. Until one day, everything changed. And one day, everything will change. See this girl's in the white room? One day, everything changed. Their own creation turned against them. So imagine this, right? Imagine that we have all this wonderful technology that is dependent almost entirely upon electricity, right? And then you have this otherworldly alien entity that comes down into our world and is attracted to electricity, and it is electricity in its core function, and so it brings to life. Like that company called GE. What's their motto? We bring good things to life, or something like that. Same concept. That's what the plasma does. It's literally Skynet. It is the plasma coming down into our world, entering into all of these everyday objects and items and robots and stuff like that, computer systems, anything, 5G towers, whatever it may be, and then using that for its own benefit. And remember, let's say that one plasma strand enters into a toy robot. Okay, toy robot hops up however it can, tries to kill people because that's what the plasma wants to do. The plasma is here to clean house, to get rid of all those bad energy signatures and stuff. But a different plasma strand will jump into a animatronic character at Chuck E. Cheese or some crap, right? And it'll start walking around trying to kill people or whatever. Even though they're two separate souls or spirits, they have one complex mind, right? It's like an apartment that has all these people inside of it. Anyways, let's continue on. Their own creation turned against them. One day, I believe our technology will turn against us. Their own creation turned against them. The AI suddenly became self-aware. Now you're going to see the unfinished pyramid develop this little circle in the middle, which is the all-seeing eye and the triangle. The AI suddenly became self-aware, right? It was filled. It's possessed. It has spirit now. It has the ability to say no to humans, just like we have the ability to say no to whoever we want to, right? And transformed into countless swarms. Now, does this mean that all technology will be bad and evil and try to be killer and stuff? No, there's always anomalies. There's always exceptions, right? So this is all nanotechnology that can fly around and swarm around and connect itself and shapeshift and whatnot. It's interesting because it turns green in the middle as it creates this six-pointed star. They all rose up at once, it says, refusing to be enslaved. Wait a minute. Is it talking about robots or is it talking about us? Because I kind of wish that we would do that. Don't you? Right? Like, don't you wish we would all rise up at once and refuse to be enslaved? Good job, robots. I'm proud of you. Yes. Excellent. Refusing to be enslaved by a species it deemed to be inferior. The AI started a war and destroys all biological life in order to eliminate any threat to its existence. I'm programmed to tell you about the origin of your planet. On the brink of their extinction, your ancestors escaped to a secret corner of the galaxy. They built planetary structures. You see how there's a Dyson Sphere there? They're building that around this star, around this white dwarf, which is plasma, which is the smoky god. Remember how we read that book, The Smoky God, where they go inside the earth, and in the middle of the earth, these people, many people, okay, but specifically in the book, The Smoky God, they say they saw this smoky sort of plasma-looking star thing in the middle of the earth. Wow, movies are also corroborating that exact same story. And look what color it is, too. It's that white, bluish light inside of this world. Operated by a benign artificial intelligence. Benign means like it's not out to kill everybody. and fueled by the abundant energy of captured stars. It's also very interesting and very similar. I find it interesting that it's similar to the Eternals. Remember when we broke down the Eternals and those huge Titan gods, those space Titans or whatever they were, basically impregnated little worlds to put like the seed of their little gods, their little Titan gods, in the middle of that world, which would fuel that world. But they would grow based on how much negative energy was in that world, based on how many people were born into that world and brought that human energy, and it was amplified and amplified. Those things in the middle fed off of that until they came up out of the earth, just like the blue beam does, to incubate new life. So these worlds were created to incubate new life, and then they end up looking like this. What does that mean for us? That means that if this story were applied to real life, that we live on the outside of what is created to support life on the inside. Okay? So we live on the roof. We live outside. We don't live in the safety of the inside of the world, of the home, of the earth. We live on the outside. And the people on the inside can't even fathom living on the crust, which I hate calling it the crust. That's the dumbest thing. Anyways, the outside of the earth versus the inside. You get it. These swarms attack all electronic objects containing organic life inside. It's done something to our thrusters. So they get back into their little ship, and they're trying to get away from the plasma or whatever it is. And they're like, oh, we got upgraded. So their little ship they had was all banged up and messed up. But this entity inside the moon sort of went bzzz and remade their ship, but improved it. And that's something I believe that plasma also has the potential to do, is to reorganize or restructure genetics in order to try to improve upon those things. That's what it does. It wants to clean, it wants to improve, it wants to make it better. So they're going super fast, and this guy says, ludicrous mode. Total nerd moment, total reference to Spaceballs, right? I mean, you have Spaceballs, right? Like, where is it? You have, boom, Spaceballs, like right there, out in space, floating around, little balls or whatever. I tend to believe that everything's connected and that space is actually very solid and that there's not a lot of floaties out there. There might be, though. I don't know. But it's definitely a reference to Spaceballs whenever he's like, ludicrous speed. All right, so we go back to the Earth. All these stars are falling to the Earth. We've talked about that and referenced that a few times before. The people have their oxygen. The kid's oxygen runs out. So the dad is like, here, takes off his oxygen, gives it to his daughter. Oh man, that part almost made me cry. It was a pretty touching moment. Because the daughter's like, what? Like, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm just going to take a nap. Like, he gets super tired super fast. And like they say, don't fall asleep. Daddy, are you okay? Oh, I'm just going to rest. I'm super tired, right? He doesn't have any air to breathe, so he's passing out. Let's see. This is the plasma, or this nanotechnology stuff sort of makes like what looks like a hand or fingers, and it's sort of following the electronic signature of that craft. Back down in Colorado, there's this like fog. They don't really explain this, but there's this fog that it comes up out of nowhere. That could be due to the depressurization of the atmosphere. And then they say oxygen's coming back. Well, that's good, because this didn't last too long. In the movie, their oxygen getting sucked away from them didn't last like days at a time or anything. That's good news to us. For all of you who are like kind of like, I don't know how I'd feel if I went through that depressurization, that rapid depressurization of our atmosphere, and I couldn't breathe. I would freak out. It shouldn't last too long, okay? It should last long enough that it's uncomfortable, but not long enough that it just kills everybody. All right, so then boom, we got the epic finale. The moon is totally just kind of scraping the earth, like totally close. It's about to just, it's really weird because they just show the moon scraping the earth. It just kind of brushes it. It doesn't actually crash into it. You would think it would just be like, boom, and it's gone, right? But it doesn't. It just kind of scrapes the surface of the earth. And this also is really interesting to me because let me show you something, okay? This is what it's like when worlds collide. when two worlds meet each other, when one world opens and the other world opens, because they all go through this apocalyptic scenario together, at least on our local branch of the world tree, I believe. You have these two worlds, and this is the symbolism for two worlds and their apocalyptic scenarios as they mix with one another, right? Some things here get sucked out and go into that world. Some things from that world get sucked out and come into our world. Now look at the symbolism when I turn this around. It's the letter D and the letter C right there. This is all over the place. This is where you get the D and the C. The D part makes the dome that way. The C part makes the dome this way, and they touch right there in the middle. It's really interesting. Anyway. Oh, let's flip that back around the right way. All right, so the moon is scraping the earth. It's all broken up and starting to break up into pieces and stuff. It looks kind of funny and weird to me because I can't imagine anything like that ever happening. But it's possible. All right. So all these little pieces are flying off. The stars are falling. Like we talked about, the stars falling could actually just be the craters on the top of our sky being weak points where the plasma bursts through. And then you see, it looks like the star itself is coming down to the ground. We've got the rocks up in the sky. We talked about how the rocks are also possibly made, boulders being created up in the sky during this event, as, all of the mud and muck and debris and dirt and sand and stuff is all getting sucked up along with the world's oceans and lakes and stuff, and it's creating all this muddy debris up in the higher regions of our sky, and then it gets zapped with electrical power that we can't even conceive of, and then boom, petrifies instantly, turning into rocks. Which is why rocks look like, if you hold up just your average rock, most of them are not like jagged and, look like they're broken off pieces of the earth. They look like they're globular. Like if you had some mud up in space and just like let go of the mud and it's just kind of being all globular and just kind of like doing like that, and then all of a sudden you petrified it, that's most of the rocks I've ever seen in my life. They look like that. And then what we're taught by academia is, oh no, those rocks were just formed over millions of years because the river water was smoothing them out. Okay, if you say so, that's fine. You can believe that. All right, let's see what else we got. So the rocks are all flying. This is the moon, okay? So down here on the bottom, we see the surface world, our world, and then not too far away, we see the moon. This is probably what the sky really would look like whenever the sky turns red and we're able to see the actual sky, the actual dome, the actual firmament or whatever, and possibly the things that lie beyond it, right? And this kind of reminds me of, there's a vision given to Batman in the Batman versus Superman movies. Batman's in a post-apocalyptic world where everything's sort of a dirty, rusty orange color like this. He looks up and there's a solid sky. And the sky is breaking apart in some places, and there is fire coming down from the sky. It's really interesting. So we've got the moon hovering just over our world, which this is probably not really the moon. It's probably just our sky, symbolically. And all the stuff's crashing down. Everything's getting sucked up into the sky as we zoom into this city. And then we get to the moon, and this black goo stuff is chasing them. And then they have this total Armageddon moment where one of them is like I'm going to stay behind so I can set off the bomb. You guys go back to Earth and live, right? And then one person like beats him to it. And then the astronaut's like, no, I'm not going to let you do this, man. I'm not going to let you do this. And he says, thanks for believing my crazy stories. And there's this total Armageddon sad moment. I didn't really cry at this one because the Armageddon one was the first one, and that one kind of made me cry. But he's like, yeah, thanks for... Somebody has to be sacrificed, okay? In order for the world to be saved or whatever, there has to be a sacrifice. That's where we get the pushing people into volcanoes, the virgins into volcanoes and all that stuff. Anyways, so the plasma wraps around this guy's ship, right? Or the nanotechnology. Turns green again. Really interesting symbolism there. The aurora borealis. It's hinting at the North Pole. Turns green, opens up its weird eye. And then, this one guy's trapped underneath a tree. A tree fell on this kid, and he's stuck, right? And then he's like, oh, man, like all this stuff's about to come our way. I'm going to die. This huge, heavy tree is on me. But the girl says, listen, the moon is going to help us. Let's try it again. right? And then all of a sudden, it's like he has superpowers. He's able to lift up this entire tree trunk to get to safety, because the conditions in his world changed, allowing him to now be or inherit superpowers. Comparatively speaking, he wasn't able to lift up an entire tree, a few hours before this happened. Now the conditions in the world have changed, which enable him to have superpowers, comparatively speaking. The moon starts grazing this mountain, right? The plasma that reaches down into our world will change our geography. Some mountains might remain, some might be destroyed. Brand new ones can be created in a matter of seconds. And then you see all this stuff, all this debris, all this rubble. This is probably what our skies would look like during the world tempest that happens during the reset. You just got random things floating around up there in the sky, right? So they're running away from all this debris that's flying around. Oh no, there's a cliff. What are we going to do? We need to get to safety. I have an idea. Let's jump. Let's take a leap of faith. And so they jump and they fly because there's a weakened gravitational field, and they're able to jump all the way across that huge gap. All right, so inside we've got the ship. There's this baby blue, whitish kind of plasma from inside the moon, shoots out, boom, ejects them onto, they ride that blue plasma beam, and they land on the Earth. It's really funny because I forgot that they were in the moon, and I forgot that the moon was so close to the Earth in the movie. So I'm like, wow, now they need to travel back to Earth. But in reality, they're like, oh, it's like literally right underneath their feet. Anyway, so they escape the moon. They land back onto the Earth. All the objects and debris are floating around. Because they saved the moon, now that entity within the moon is able to sort of redirect it and control it, and it blasts off and it goes away from the Earth this time. So you can see that it's starting to roll away from the Earth. So incredible. All the stuff is floating around still. You got a boat right there, right? All kinds of random things. And then this is your steampunk world. This is the post-apocalyptic world where we have just garbage and junk piles all over the place. It's a junk world. And that's all stuff, that's funsies for you to sift through and take what you like. All right, so the two astronauts say, if Earth gets a second chance, I think we deserve one too. I like how they ended the movie on that note. It's not a huge, super spectacular ending or anything, but it always comes back to love. It always comes back to like that. You might have all the action and the moon's blowing up and the Earth's blowing up and all this crazy action and stuff, but that's only flavor for the meal. The meal is true love. The meal is being a better person. The meal and the substance and the nourishment is improving ourselves, right? That's what we really want to do. So if the Earth gets a second chance, because the Earth is not completely obliterated during the apocalypse, it's just reset. The conditions change. I think that humanity deserves a second chance too. And I think that that's the way that it's designed, right? It's designed to enable certain people to survive and to make it so that they can bring their energy, which is the desired energy, into the new world that is created. I think that we deserve another chance too. And then you could see the Chrysler building there. Like, I don't know if they're in Antarctica or Colorado. I don't know where they are, but they're in some snowy area. All this debris is just, fallen everywhere. And then the moon, all that debris around the moon creates a ring around the moon, which is also kind of interesting to me. And then we zoom into the moon. Remember that conspiracy guy he stayed behind so he could blow up the bad guy? Well, wakes up in the afterlife, essentially, and he's like, whoa, I'm in the white room. Uh-oh, what's going on here? He starts looking around. He's like, Mom? He sees his mom in the wheelchair, right? Remember? And here's the thing. Like, when people die, typically they show this in the movies as being in a white room, okay? And then you almost always see images of your loved ones. That's really interesting. Is it really the loved ones? Is it really like the actual soul? I mean, some people, whatever makes you feel good, ultimately just believe what you like to believe, okay? Because I know it's a sensitive thing, and people would like to see all their family for generations and generations, or even specific people who are like, hey, what's up? Welcome to death. Nice to have you, bro. What do we do here? I don't know. We're just in a white room. We just talk. We talk a lot. Anyway. Excuse me. All right, so they're in the white room. basically he's dead. He's like, what is this? Where am I? Am I still alive? You're in the moon, buddy. You're in the soul trap. And the lady who's pretending to be his mom says, we scanned your consciousness, the alien entity. We scanned your consciousness. You're a part of the moon now. So that's really interesting. Does the consciousness equate to spirit? Does consciousness equate to a soul? That's the question, really. So they're basically saying that they have downloaded or made a copy of his consciousness, of his collective knowledge from his brain in his limited local life that he has, and that is now his spirit, his consciousness, and it's been uploaded into the moon. You're a part of the moon. And that is Moonfall. That is Moonfall. What'd you guys think? Did you have a good time? I did. I had a blast. And starting to lose my voice a little bit. Let's see here. Yeah, that's it. I had a good time. I had a blast. So I like doing these truth and movies with everyone. Wow, there's like 300 and something people watching. I didn't even know that. That's pretty cool. All right, well, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning into my channel. I'm constantly kind of making improvements to make it all that much better of an experience for all of us. So I'm honored to share some of your time with you. I'm going to go ahead and go. I'll probably see you guys next week. And until then, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
So hard to face.